Hare Krishna, good morning dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur. It's our adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is session number 78 in our series we're calling A Meeting in Kurukshetra. As Krishna Chaitanya Maharaj said once, it's a long, slow road. Hare Krishna vacation. Nice to see you. So today we have a very interesting subject in front of us. We're going to begin to speak about Krishna's words to the gopis, and the very, very deep meaning, what he's telling the gopis to Uddhava. So we'll first offer a few prayers. Narayanam namaskrityam naram shaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat Vede Ramayane Chaiva Purane Bhadate Tata Adavante Chamadye Chahari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karodi Vachalam Pangum Mangayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padungaluchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikori Bechakadola Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamu Rahu Nirantare Manamu Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Mote Udara Radha Dava Mote Udara Radha Dava Mote Udara Radha Dava Dharma Projita Kaitavota Paramoni Matsanam Satam Vidyam Vastava Matta Vastu Shivadam Tapachayun Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamune Krite Kimva Parayishvara Sadyo Hidyavarudyate Tukati Shushu Subhistakshanat Nigamakopataro Lalitam Phalam Shukamukara Mitra Dravasam Yutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Mohora Shika Bhuvi Bhavuka Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So nice to be here in Mayapur with the devotees, seeing devotees we were with a year ago. And also seeing Binda Sundari from Denver and Raghava Pandit Prabhu online. Thank you all very much. We want to speak something from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is from the 10th canto, chapter 47, which is the Brahmara-Gita. In our last sessions, we were speaking something about different types of listeners and speakers, and how of all the different listeners, the gopis are the best. And of all the different speakers, Uddhava is the best with the gopis. So we'd like to offer some pranam to Uddhava. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given a very beautiful verse. Artaika saranam krishnam artam brajajanam chatan tam chartasvasakam bhaktam archavande durasaya. The Vanda durasaya. He says, I'm doing my vandana, I'm offering these prayers, durasaya, artyavande durasaya, with a hopeless heart. He said, I offer my pranams, my respect to Krishna, Artaika Sharanam Krishnam who's the only shelter of the people who are suffering. Artam Vraja-janams Chitan, who's the only shelter for the suffering people of Braj. And I offer my pranams to Uddhava, who alleviate their suffering. So we're reading today from text number 29. And this verse begins, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, but it's being spoken by Uddhava. So Uddhava is repeating the words of Krishna to the gopis. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Bhavatinam Viyogo Me Nahi Sarvatmana Kvachit Yata Bhutani Bhuteshu Kham Vav Agnir Jalam Mahi Tataham Shamana Prana Bhutimdriya Gunasrayaha. The Supreme Lord said, speaking to the gopis, you're never actually separated from me, for I am the soul of all creation. Just as the elements of nature, ether, air, fire, water, and earth are present in every created thing, so I am present within everyone's mind, life, air, and senses, and also within the physical elements and the modes of material nature. Does it sound like a very exciting verse? I see when devotees, when it comes to reading from the third canto of the Bhagavatam, third canto, time according to the atom, or the universal form, devotees are like, they'll read the verse in purport and say, I think we'll talk about Prabhupada today. We've seen that quite a bit. So this is a very mysterious verse. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given a very long commentary on this, which I think it'll take us many days to try to cover. One of the longest commentaries that he gives on all of his Bhagavatam verses, and this verse is not what it looks like. It's very, very beautiful. So anyway, let me go ahead and read this. I'll read something from the BBT purport. They say, according to Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, the apparently philosophical language of the Lord's statement contains a deeper meaning. The Supreme Lord was secretly telling the gopis that he, by way of reciprocating his special love for him, was present with them, not only as the soul of all creation, but also as their special lover. Sometimes we comment that devotees, they say, anyway, it's not so hard during the pandemic. At least I can go on Facebook and I can watch some Facebook live class, or I can go on Zoom or something. And it's just the same. But it's not the same. It's just so nice today to be here with all the devotees. And we give an example, that the gopis are crying in separation from Krishna. And if you go to the gopis and you tell them, don't worry, it's okay. Krishna's on Facebook. You can associate with him there. Will the gopis be satisfied with that? No. Let me be very upset that you would even suggest such a thing. So this verse is Parokshavad. Parokshavad Amrishaya Parokshimama Chapriyam, in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, 12th canto of the Bhagavatam. Krishna says that this paroksha, or statements which have double meanings, this is very dear to the rishis, and it's very, very dear to me. This is how the rishis speak. We should be careful with Gurudev. We should be careful with those Vaishnavas who are very, very subtle. They may say something with a glance. They may externally say something very sweet and praising you, but by their praise they may be abusing you. I heard for many years from my Siksha Guru, Fakir Mohan Prabhu, and sometimes he would praise me like anything in front of everyone. And he would say, Madhavananda is such a pandit, he's so learned, but in actuality he was abusing me. Although it looked like he's praising, but in reality he's chastising. Because at the age of, 12 years old or something, he'd memorized the entire Amara Kosh, Sanskrit dictionary. Entire dictionary he'd memorized. He knew so much about Vedic philosophy. They used to pay him extra money from the Sanskrit University in Jagannath Puri to grade the test papers for the Shankar Vedanta. He's a Gaudiya Vaishnava, but he knew Shankara Vedanta so well that he could grade the test papers for that. And my Guru Maharaj said he knew more about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu than anyone on the planet. He was like a walking encyclopedia. And he's saying this about me, who can't pronounce Sanskrit properly, who doesn't understand Odi or Bengali with to speak of Sanskrit. So it's paroksha, it's a double kind of meaning, it's a chastisement. So Krishna's saying something here to the gopis, and it has so many different meanings for so many different types of persons. And that's another thing. Sometimes sadhu, he'll speak something and one person will understand what he means. Another person will understand something completely different. I've seen that with my Guru Maharaj and with different sadhus. Sometimes devotees sit down and I was with them and Guru Maharaj is saying something and we come out and somebody says, wow, that was really far. Guru Maharaj said this. And I look at them, oh my God, I had the complete opposite understanding of what Guru Maharaj said. So sometimes the sadhus speak in this way. So this is a very mysterious kind of verse that Krishna is saying here that I am Sarvatmana, I am the soul of all existence, and yata bhutani bhuteshu, just as all the physical elements are there and all the living entities, so I'm also there with you in a similar way. What is Krishna speaking to the gopis? So we want to explore this. It's a very, very special thing, and this has a lot to do with our topic about the meeting in Kurukshetra, because that meeting, there's different types of meeting, and the highest type of meeting is called Samriddhiman Sambhog, according to Rupa Goswami in his Uddhava and Lamani. And that Samriddhiman Sambhog, or that union, Samriddhiman means fully enriched, takes place only after what's called Sudura Prabhas, Viraha. So there's 4 different types of Viraha. We spoke at length about this in different times. The last and most intense is called Sudura Prabhas. And that's also, Rupa Goswami calls it sometimes Mathura or Dwarka Prabhas, meaning when Krishna is gone to Mathura, Dwarka. So after that intense separation, when the gopis don't know, are we going to see Krishna ever again or not? When there's union again after that, and that union seems impossible. If you read Lalita Madhav, the union that Rupa Goswami describes there, it's impossible. It's impossible because in Lalita Madhav, Radharani commits suicide. She drowns herself in the Jamuna, but later there's reunion with Krishna and Dwarka. How is it possible? That's Samriddhiman Sambhog. When it seems impossible, but there's again that union. And that's also the kind of union that a sincere disciple has with Gurudev. When Gurudev, we can't see him for a few days, or maybe I can't see him for a few hours because he has things to do, but he's going to give a class in the evening. We may call that Dura Prabhas. It's intense, but we're going to see him again. But Sudura Prabhas, when Gurudev goes to a distant country, when Bhakti Charu Maharaj went to America and the devotees were telling him, Guru Maharaj, please don't go, this COVID thing. And he told them, no, I want to preach for Srila Prabhupada. And they didn't know if we were going to see him again or not. And they didn't in that particular form. Or when Gurudev leaves this world, how is it possible? How can we ever see him again? But when that guru and disciple meet again, even after such impossible circumstances, that's Samriddhiman Sambhog. And this is the gift of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to our Sampradaya. Srila Prabhupada in several purports, he says that the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers is viraha, vipralamba, separation. This is a special gift. Because when there's Sudura Prabhas and Samriddhiman Sambhog, when the fully enriched union is there, then we can taste something of what's known as Madanakya Mahabhav, or the highest ecstasy of Srimati Radharani, where both things are combined. In the language of my Guru Maharaj, 2 opposites in one container. union and separation. And this is a meeting in Kurukshetra. So this words of Krishna to the gopis through Uddhava in this Brahmara-Gita, which again, as we've discussed in many of our previous sessions, is described by many Vaishnavas as the most important chapter in the entire Bhagavatam, more important than the first chapter, the first canto, which lays a foundation for the Bhagavatam, more important than the discussion of Krishna's appearance in this world, in the third chapter, I think it is, of the 10th canto, more important than the Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters describing the Rasa Leela, which are the lotus face of Krishna, describing Padma Purana, the glorification of the Bhagavatam. This verse is like the heart of the Bhagavatam. And in this chapter is at the heart of the Bhagavatam. And in this chapter, we see the mood of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And we see Gauranga Mahaprabhu, as we've spoken in many previous sessions. So, many things are being said here in this verse. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that Krishna is speaking through Uddhava to the gopis in a particular way. And some people, they don't understand it. Previously, I had spoken from the 46th chapter of the 10th canto, where Uddhava, Krishna tells Uddhava, Gachotavam Uddhava, that you go to Braj. And he tells Uddhava that you speak this message, and the Sanskrit there is plural, that you speak it again and again and again to the gopis. What is the necessity of speaking it again and again? What is the necessity of us hearing the same thing over and over again? Prabhu, I've heard that story so many times. You know, Krishna stealing the butter and Mother Yashoda tying him up. We've heard that so many times. And from a mundane perspective, sometimes we become bored if we're seeing it in the wrong way. But it's ever fresh. We should understand that. And we need to hear it again and again and again, because by hearing it again and again, our heart becomes purified, and we develop some rati, some attraction for Krishna and for Krishna's message. So we serve that message in that way. And in the case of the gopis, there's no question of them having to purify their hearts. But Krishna tells Uddhava, speak this message again and again to them, because they're going to understand it in different layers, different levels. Just like, to use an example which we're not supposed to use because we don't eat onions, but like an onion has many different layers. As you peel the onion, there's more and more layers to it. So similarly with Krishna's words to the gopis, there's so many different layers. And Krishna is speaking in this way, and for those most intelligent people, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and our acharyas, they'll understand and see it in a certain way. But other persons who are a little dull-minded, when they hear these things, they see, this yoga is very important. This Brahma Gyan, this is very, very important. Krishna's speaking this even to the gopis, because they know the gopis are the topmost devotees. Similarly, in the beginning of the Ras Leela, Shiman Rasa Rasadam Vamsi Vata Tatastita Karshan Venasunar Gopir Gopinatha Shriyastana. When Gopinath at Vamsivat began to blow his flute and calling all the gopis to come, the gopis came running there. And then Krishna was there. He said, what are you doing? It's a very dark night. You're all married ladies. You're coming in the middle of a forest to meet a young man. This is not good. And Krishna started preaching to them Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga means Vanashram Dharma. He started speaking Karma Yoga to them. And some people, they read that, and they think, this is very important. The wife should not go out at night. She shouldn't speak to any other man. And they'll take some principles from that. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that in that way, Krishna's cheating certain people because he wants to hide what he's saying to the gopis. What a wonderful, intimate thing when you can sit in a public place with someone and you can speak to someone very close with you, and 20 people are listening, and nobody understands what you're actually saying to that person, but the intimate person understands. These are Krishna's words to the gopis. And these are the way, again, that Gurudev speaks to the disciple. And we should think very carefully on what Gurudev says. Because as we've commented oftentimes, Sri Guru has two things, kripa and vanchana. He has mercy and he has cheating. And it depends on how we're approaching him. And we may approach him with some material motivation. And Gurudev says, yes, yes, you should get married. You should do business. That's most important. You should make lots of money. My grandmother's one devotee came to him, and he was in a small South Asian country. And he was a little bit of an angry kind of devotee. And he was he was on a campaign against the government. He had some kind of official position within the government. He was fighting against the government. And my grandma said, yes, you should do this. I don't think Guru Maharaj gives a fig about whether he does that or not. Guru Maharaj wants to see the devotees practice bhakti. But just like one devotee came to Srila Prabhupada once and said, Prabhupada, I really don't get along with my wife. I want to leave her. I want to divorce her. And I want to marry this other girl instead. And Prabhupada said, yes, you should do that. And there were a few devotees in the room. And after that, the devotee was very happy to get Prabhupada's instruction. And he left the room. And the other devotees who were there, they were horrified. That Prabhupada, you've always said there should only be one wife, and there's no question of getting remarried, no question of divorce. And Prabhupada said, yes, that's the fact. But he would have done it anyway. And this is what he wanted. So I told him like that. So it's not so easy to understand the words of Sadhguru. So Krishna speaks in a certain way that certain people will understand. And I think that Krishna, at the time of the Ras Leela, Krishna was speaking karma yoga. But by doing that, he's cheating certain people. And by doing that, he's revealing the ecstatic prema of the gopis to devotees who have some qualification. The devotees who don't have qualification, they just hear this Varnashram Dharma kind of instructions. But the devotees who do have qualification, they'll see, wow, just look. Even though Krishna's personally telling them, they refuse to go back. Their love is so very, very intense. So in that way, Krishna covers the true glories of his dear devotees from fools who think that they're great scholars. Vishwanath speaks like this. And Krishna very cleverly makes his so-called scholars think that this karma yoga is very important. And now, Krishna says that, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, now Krishna is speaking Gyan yoga to the gopis. And again, some people who are bahimukh janas or external, when they hear these things, they'll say, oh yes, this Gyan is very important. So why is he speaking like this? Because it's a very, very confidential thing. And by speaking in this way, Krishna is simultaneously nourishing those devotees who are wise, and he's giving them the nectar of prema. And he's cheating the non-devotees, Vishwanath says, by giving them some intoxicating liquor, just like Mohini Murti. Mohini Murti, when she came to give the nectar, she ignored the demigods. She didn't pay attention to them. And she was looking at all the demons, and she was smiling at them and winking at them. And all the demons were getting very excited. When a beautiful girl winks at you or smiles at you, the man becomes very excited. They were quarreling. She's smiling at me. No, she's not. She's smiling at me. And the demons are very happy that Mohini Murti is only paying attention to us. But while she was smiling and winking at them and ignoring the demigods, secretly, behind her back, she was giving all the nectar to the demigods. And Gurudev does like this sometimes. And it's very, very difficult to understand. Sometimes there's someone who wants a big position, and they think that's the purpose of the Krishna conscious movement. I have to think of my career in ISKCON. And Gurudev says, yes, you are so intelligent, you should be in charge. And he puts such a person in charge. And that's his mercy. It may be vanchana, but even vanchana or cheating is also mercy, because it makes you cry in such a way that you never ask for that service again. Or, not that we should disregard and disrespect all the managers. They may be a great devotee, Prabhupada personally wanted Jayananda Prabhu to be the temple president in San Francisco. He didn't want that. We don't know. So we respect everyone, Amanina Manadena, and especially if someone's a manager, we give respect to them. But we don't think that that's necessarily the real mercy. The real mercy is to serve Gurudev for his pleasure. And there's so many devotees who serve Srila Prabhupada, understanding, as Giriraj Maharaj once, Prabhupada asked them, someone can correct me, I don't know if I remember this exactly right, but said something like, what is the most important thing? Something Giriraj Maharaj said, but chant Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada said, no. Maybe it was the most important instruction for our society. And Prabhupada said something, you should manage things properly.
How will this institution go on?
Yes, that's what it was. Thank you very much. Prabhupada asked him, how will this institution go on after I go? And Giriraj Maharaj was very attached to the holy name. He used to always chant, and I think he still does. The devotees have seen us walking down the street without japa or whatever he's doing. He's just Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And so he answered like that Prabhupada, the movement will continue by chanting Hare Krishna. It's a good answer. Prabhupada said, nonsense. There has to be good management. And devotees who understand Srila Prabhupada's mood, they take that up, and many of them, that's been their life and soul, and they've gotten so much mercy from Srila Prabhupada. Understanding that it's not that management is going to make the movement go on. Otherwise, it would be the International Society for Management Consciousness, and management will solve all the problems, Prabhu. It doesn't solve the problems, but management's very important. And management means that we manage in such a way to keep the holy name in the center, as Prabhupada told the GBC. Our favorite comment from Prabhupada, he said, came before them once and said, this chanting should go on. Instead of meetings, resolutions, dissolutions, revolutions, and no solutions, there should be chanting. That chanting is the purpose of all the meetings and resolutions. And we should understand that. And someone who does understand it, they've gotten the mercy of Prabhupada. But someone who doesn't and just sees things in an external way, they think, oh, I should go to management school. And I should study management. Management is so important. And I want to become an accountant, a certified accountant, because that's the goal of life. And then I'll be able to do everything nice, isn't it? David Singh Prabhu? He's a certified accountant. And then I'll be able to solve all the problems. But then we wonder why there's so many problems. And the problems are not getting solved because Pasya Paka Vipariyasam. It's said in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam that when we adopt a mundane solution for problems in this world, the result is only more problems. Pasya Paka Vipariyasam. But it's a very subtle thing. And the two persons may be doing the exact same activity and getting a completely different result and have a completely different consciousness of it. It's not that management is bad, it's not that anything is bad. It's our consciousness. So, Krishna, he promised to the gopis that I would return. And not everyone could understand this. He told Nanda Maharaj, when Nanda Maharaj was leaving Mathura to return to Braj, Yata yuyam brajam tata vivayam cha sneha dukitan gyatinvo rastam eshyamo vidhaya sarikam sukham. He said, now, my dear father, Yata yuyam, you and all the cowherd boy, you should go back to Braj. Yata yuyam brajam tata. Tata means my dear father. And we'll see you again soon. You don't worry. That happiness will come again soon. That was Krishna's promise. When Krishna left Braj, he turned to the gopis and he said, Ayasha, I'm going to return. So, did Krishna lie? Or did Krishna return? What does it mean? And we see there's different descriptions in the Padma Purana. There's a story about how Krishna returned to Braj. And some of our acharyas have also described in different commentaries in the Bhagavatam that Krishna sometimes returned to Braj. That's another thing. And that's there to give faith to certain types of people. But the real fact of the matter is that Krishna never left Braj. And we gave some class about this recently. And this is the very deep meaning of Krishna's words to the gopis. So I'd like to now go in a little different direction, a little practical way for all of us. What's going on here? It's a very interesting dynamic. Uddhava is Sri Guru. Sri Guru means that personality who's endowed with Sri, with auspiciousness. Sri Guru means that person who's been directed directly by Krishna. That's Uddhava Sri Guru. And he's coming and he's giving a message, and Krishna tells Uddhava, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that when you go and you say something, my parents will understand this in one way. And then you go to the gopis and they're going to understand it another way, and you keep repeating to them over and over again. So when Uddhava goes and speaks to the gopis, it seems like he's speaking about Gyan. And what is he doing? Huh? On one level, Krishna is teaching Uddhava. It seems like he's giving a lesson to the gopis, but in actuality, Krishna is teaching Uddhava. Why? Because Uddhava is very attached to Gyan. Uddhava is a Brihaspati Sishya, the disciple of Brihaspati, the guru of the demigods. And Uddhava has this abhiman, that I know Shastra, I'm a very good counselor, I know how to do counseling and solve people's problems. So Krishna's saying, yes, you should go and speak this Gyan to the gopis and see what happens. So Uddhava goes there and he understands in one particular way this message. The gopis are understanding in another way. So there's a very deep and important lesson here. And anyone who's ever taught understands this lesson. They say that even in the mundane world, that if you want to learn a subject, the best way to learn is to teach. And any good parent will tell you, I've learned so much from my children. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he once commented, one devotee told me that Tamal Krishna Maharaj had told him personally that I've learned so much from my disciples. And that's a paradoxical kind of thing. That sometimes the guru may learn from the disciple. We shouldn't think like that. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, in the first Vilas, Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatana Goswami have given many instructions for guru and disciple. And one of the things that is said that you should never speak before your guru. You should never instruct your guru. That's a great offense. It's not Sishya Abhiman. But at the same time, as we see in this pastime, Uddhava is going and speaking to the gopis. And who's really learning? Uddhava is learning, not the gopis. Krishna is so clever. He's doing so many things simultaneously. He's giving a beautiful, very intimate message, which we'll hear more about in some later sessions, to the gopis, what he's telling them. At the same time, foolish people, they think, yeah, just like Krishna spoke karma yoga to the gopis at the time of the Ras Leela, now he's speaking jnana yoga. And they think this jnana, therefore, is very important. The karma, the varnashram is very important. And at the same time, Krishna's teaching Uddhava. We found a verse which I've never seen quoted anywhere else. It's written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Sajjana Toshini in one article and published in 1899. And this particular verse, very nice verse, I like very much, he doesn't say where it's from. I suppose perhaps he wrote it himself. But we don't find in any of his other writings, and I haven't been able to find in any writings of our acharyas anywhere. It's a Bengali verse, and it's very relevant for us today. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Padile shunele kabu Krishna prapti noy, Bhajile vishuddha bhave tabe Krishna pai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Padile shunile kabu, Krishna prapti noi. Krishna prapti noi. You can't get Krishna. Padile shunile, by so much erudition. Padile means to study. Shunile means you're hearing by studying in a very intense. Krishna prapti noi. You don't attain Krishna by information. It's not that there's a certain level. Once I've memorized 100 verses, then when I hit 199, I haven't realized Krishna. But as soon as I memorize 100 verse, bam, that's it. Now I've realized Krishna. Krishna's going to laugh. Padile nishunile kabu Krishna prapti noi. You can't understand Krishna in that way. Rather, bhajile vishuddha bhave tabi Krishna pai. The only way is if someone performs pure bhajan. Uddhava, he's thinking that this information is so important, and that's why he's going. He's telling Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, don't cry. Don't you know, Krishna's Bhagavan, he's not really your son. He's always with you. And they're looking at him, what are you, crazy? And it doesn't help. And Uddhava is becoming confused because in Mathura and in the heavenly planets, wherever I go, this works. But here it doesn't work. And now he's coming before the gopis, and Krishna warned him, when you speak to the gopis, it's very difficult even for me to understand their mood. Krishna wants Uddhava to learn something. At the same time, Krishna's giving a beautiful inner message to the gopis. There's a beautiful purport, very famous purport from Srila Prabhupada in the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj in the 4th canto. I'd like to read that, just meditate on it a little bit, because it kind of gives us some insight in some of the dynamics that are going on between Uddhava and the gopis. Prabhupada writes, he speaks about how Dhruva Maharaj's mother, Suniti, she's his mother, but Dhruva, who's the son, delivers her. And Prabhupada says, this incident proves that the Siksha or Diksha guru who has a disciple who strongly executes devotional service like Dhruva Maharaj can be carried by the disciple, even though the instructor is not as advanced. That the Siksha or Diksha guru, he may carry the guru. The disciple may carry that Siksha or Diksha guru. He says, although Suniti was an instructor to Dhruva Maharaj, she could not go to the forest like Dhruva did. She couldn't go to the temple or whatever, just like the Yagna Patnis. The Brahmins, their husbands, were trying to figure out, how did they get Krishna's mercy? They never got initiated. They were never brahmacharis living in the temple. They never studied the Shastra. They're just women. But they attained Krishna and we didn't, and they couldn't figure it out. That's another pastime. So Suniti, she couldn't go to the forest because she's a woman. She couldn't execute austerities and penances like Dhruva Maharaj did. It's said in the beautiful verse in the Narada Pancharatra, Aradito Ninam, what is it? Anyway, for someone who is worshiping Krishna, Radito Ninam, Niradito Ninam, he said Aradito, for someone who's worshiping the Lord, what's the purpose of doing austerities? You're already worshiping the Lord. There's no necessity. And if you're not worshiping the Lord, what is the value of doing austerities? So what is the value of austerities? Just for the sake of austerities. So Prabhupada goes on. Still Dhruva Maharaj, he's the son. He was able to take his mother with him. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj also delivered his atheistic father, Hiranyakashipu. The conclusion is that a disciple or an offspring who is a very strong devotee can carry with him to Vaikuntha Lok either his father, mother, or Siksha or Diksha Guru. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, quote, if I could perfectly deliver even one soul back home, back to Godhead, I would think my mission propagating Krishna consciousness to be successful. End of quote. The Krishna conscious movement, Prabhupada says, is spreading now all over the world. And Prabhupada says, sometimes I think that even though I'm crippled in many ways, if one of my disciples becomes as strong as Dhruva Maharaj, then he'll be able to carry me with him to Vaikuntha Lok. This is Gaudiya Vaishnavism. In this 47th chapter of the 10th canto, we find the essence of Guru. Because the topmost Guru is Srimati Radharani. In our line, Guru is the gopis. We learn from the gopis. Krishna is learning from the gopis. And because Krishna is learning from the gopis, he's hearing this Brahma-Gita in Jagannath Puri, in the Gambhira. Because this is going on, Krishna becomes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he wants to come and try to relish those instructions of the gopis. So it looks like externally, on one hand, we had Krishna sending a message to the gopis through Uddhava, and he's giving this instruction to them. But what's really going on in the deeper level, he's bringing out the bhav of the gopis, and that bhav of the gopis is so intense. Krishna himself is learning from it. Uddhava is learning from it. And the guru is learning from the disciple. This is unheard of in Varnashram Dharma in a general way. The disciple always respects the guru. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum mangayate gurum. I don't understand anything. Agyana tavidatamarandasya gyananjana shalakaya. I'm born in the darkness of ignorance, and Gurudev has given me everything. We don't instruct guru. But the principle of guru in Gaudiya Vaishnavism means that personality who's a devotee. Because in general we say that acharya mam vijaniyam navamanyita karichit sakshadare vinasta masa shasya. That Gurudev is a manifestation of Krishna, and that Krishna is speaking. But in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the devotee is speaking, and the devotee overcomes Krishna. And that's the topmost guru. We see this principle in many places in our literature. I'd like to share a few places with you today. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 15, there's a description, there's a conversation Mahaprabhu's having with Mukunda. And he tells Mukunda, if you've gone to Jajigram in this area, this is a wonderful pastime to experience, so you can see the original deity of Raghunandan Thakur. Raghunandan Thakur, he was the son of Mukunda, both great devotees. And that young boy was told by his father once that you offer some boga to the deity of Gopinath. And when Raghunandan Thakur offered that, his father couldn't, where'd the prasadam go? And Gopinath ate everything. Because this young boy, although he didn't know the mantras and mudras and things, and although he's the son, Gopinath is taking it. So Mahaprabhu once asked Mukunda, he said, you're the father, and Raghunandan is the son. Or I'm a little confused. Is Raghunandan your father and you're his son? Which is which? Huh? You tell me, who's the father, who's the son? So Mukunda is a Manina Manadin. He's really qualified. He's not thinking according to Varnashram Dharma, this is my son, my putra. Hey, as my father sometimes would say, I brought you into this world and I can take you out of this world. You listen to what I have to say. It's the abhiman of a father in this material world. But Mukunda, he replied to Mahaprabhu, Mukunda kahe Raghunandana morapita hoy, Amita putra e Amaranischay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Amaranischay. This is my statement. That Raghunandan Morapita hoy. Raghunandan, he's my father. And Amitar Putra. I'm his son. Definitely. Why? Ama Sabha Krishna Bhakti Raghunandan hoite. Atayeva Pita Raghunandan Amanishchite. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. He says, because we've all gotten Krishna Bhakti from Raghunandan. And Krishna Bhakti is the goal. It's not that because he's my son, your son may be your guru. Just like Kapila Dev became the guru of Devahuti. And this is the nature of bhakti that we respect according to someone's devotion, not according to just their external position within Varnashram Dharma. That bhakti is the topmost position. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Chaitanya Siksamrita describes 8 different levels of maryada, or respect. And the first is Nara Matrera Maryada. We respect anyone as a human being. That's very respectable. We should respect animals also. But someone's a human being, they may be a headhunter in New Guinea. And if they invite you for lunch, don't go. It's a very dangerous thing. They're cannibals. But still, we give respect. Even though they're not hardly a vegetarian, they're a human being, not a Matira Maryada, but more Sabhyatira Maryada, someone who's a gentleman, who understands, who opens doors for ladies, who gives respect to all people. We give more respect to that person. Then even more than that, we give respect to Raja Maryada or Pada Maryada, someone who has some position, they're a king, they're a police officer. More than that, Vidya Maryada, someone who has knowledge. More than that, Sadguna Maryada, someone who has good qualities. More than that, Varna Maryada, we give respect to someone who's acting according to Varnashram Dharma, according to their Varna. It's a very rare thing. Even amongst devotees, we speak about Varnashram Dharma, but how many devotees know what their Varna is and act, and then they work according to their Varna. It's a very, very rare thing. But more respect than that, we give them Ashram Maryada. Ashram Maryada means we respect a brahmachari. It's very respectable. We respect a sannyasi, we respect a grihastha. It's difficult to be a grihastha. It's a very respectable position. We respect anyone who's acting according to that ashram, meaning practicing spiritual life within those 4 different ashrams. And especially we give respect to the sannyasis. That's 7 different levels of respect. Bhaktivinoda says we should follow all those. But more than all of those, the 8th and highest level of respect is Bhakti Maryada. We should always give respect to Bhakti. And it may be a little boy or a little girl. It may be a gurukul. It may be just a housewife who's just cooking. But I've seen in Orissa, one of our friends who's initiated by Radhanath Maharaj, and lives in America now. He's from Orissa, and he was telling me about his mother and how from her, she's just a simple housewife and nobody paid much attention to her, but she's just always worshiping the deity, always reciting prayers and shlokas, and she would talk to Krishna, and Krishna was talking to her. And she was, and we may not believe that when she left her body, it was a very, very special thing. She was chanting Hare Krishna, meditating on Krishna, a very, very exalted devotee. We don't know. We might just think, oh, she's not very significant. She doesn't give class. She's not a manager. Doesn't have a danda, just this or that. But Bhakti Maryada, we give respect to Bhakti. And therefore, Mukunda is saying to Mahaprabhu that because Krishna, Ama Sabara, all of us, Krishna Bhakti Raghunanda Hoiti, because Raghunanda has given us Bhakti. Therefore, he's definitely Ataiva Pitta, he's definitely my father. We should respect Bhakti the most. This is what we're learning from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is what we're learning here, that Uddhava is going and speaking to the gopis. And he's thinking, yes, I'm an expert counselor. I know so much Gyan. I have this nice message from Krishna. He's speaking, but who's really learning? It's not the gopis who are learning. The gopis already know this. It's Uddhava who's really learning. And Mahaprabhu, when he heard this, he was very, very pleased. And he said, Jana hoite, Krishna bhakti, se guru hoy. That person who gives us Krishna bhakti, that person is guru. Similarly, in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's a wonderful pastime which took place in Katwa. That Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to take sannyas from Keshava Bharati. In Keshava Bharati, it was a big scene. And just like sometimes in ISKCON, someone wants to leave their wife and their children and take sannyas. But Prabhupada wrote a letter. I'll give you a nice example. He wrote a letter to one senior devotee. And Prabhupada said, I do not think it's a good idea for you to take sannyas while your wife is pregnant. That will not be very much appreciated within our movement. I mean, I can't even imagine somebody would even think in such a way. You know, she gets pregnant, oh, she's just annoying, she's just a problem, she wants to eat all the time, and she's crying, she's very emotional, Prabhupada, I want to take sannyas. It's crazy. Huh? So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left Navadvip, and he went to Katwa, and there was a big crowd of everyone gathered there. What's happening? Keshavarti said, no. And he said, oh, and Mahaprabhu said, no, I want to take sannyas. Keshav Bharati said, look, you're just a young man, you have a beautiful young wife, your mother. And Mahaprabhu said, no, I'm very determined. And finally Keshav Bharati said, okay, you can take sannyas. But if you want to take sannyas, first go home. Go back to your wife and your mother, get their permission. You didn't get their permission. You get their permission, and then come back. You go to all your associates and get their permission. Then you come back to me. And Keshav Bharati, Vrindavan Das Thakur says, was thinking to himself, this was his trick. He thought, when Nimai leaves to go get permission like that, then I'm going to leave also. So because I don't want to give him sannyas. This is horrible. How can I give him sannyas? But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he knows the heart of everyone. And he was smiling. He said, yes, I'll obey your command. And Mahaprabhu started out from Navadvip. And then Keshav Bharati stopped. So who's teaching who? Keshav Bharati is supposed to be the guru. And Mahaprabhu is supposed to be the disciple. Keshav Bharati is giving him an instruction. You go back to Navadvip, you take permission from everyone, you do this Varnashram Dharma, this karma. And Mahaprabhu said, yes. He smiled. Sure, whatever you tell me, I'll follow that. And he left. He started going back to Navadvip. And then suddenly, Keshav Bharati, he began to learn. And he had some realization, oh, I'm telling him to go home, but all the universes are residing in the pores of his skin. I want to run away from him, but where can I run away? He's everywhere. He's the life of everyone. And so then, thinking like that, Keshav Bharati started running after Mahaprabhu. I said, no, wait. He said, look, please listen to me. He said, I'm afraid to give sannyas to you. How can I give sannyas to you? You're the guru of all the worlds. Who can be your guru? Why are you trying to trick me and make fun of me like this? It's not right. And when Vishvambar, Nimai Pandit, heard the words of Keshav Bharati, he began to cry. And he fell down on the ground and he grabbed Keshav Bharati's feet. And he said, why are you speaking so harshly to me? And this is the mood of a disciple. If Gurudev praises us, we think, oh, well, he's chastising me. And Mahaprabhu was saying, why are you speaking so harshly to me? I'm a surrendered soul. If I leave you, I'll die. My heart will accept anything that you say. He said, I just have one request. And Keshav Bharati said, well, what is that? And then Mahaprabhu spoke the following words. Ekadina ratri seshe dekilun supan sanyasera mantra mori kahila brahma Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Ram, Ram Hare. He said, Ek din rati sesh. One day at the end of the night, dekilun swapna, I had a dream. I saw this dream. Sanya Sira Mantra Mori Kahila Brahman. And some Brahman came and he told me the sannyas mantra. Deka deke e bate hoye ki banahe iha bole bharatira karni mantra kahe Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram He said, Deka deki, e bati hoy ki bahanai. He said, check this out. Iha boli bharatiya karni mantra kai. Check out this mantra. And Mahaprabhu whispered the mantra in the ear of Keshav Bharati. He said, is this the correct mantra? Iha boli sanyasira karni kahe mantra. Prakare haila guru apani swatantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And in that way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Iha Boli Sanyasira, Karni Kahimanti, in the ear of that sannyasi, Keshav Bharati, Mahaprabhu spoke that mantra, and by doing it, Prakare Haila Guru Apani Swatantra, Mahaprabhu initiated him and became his guru. This is Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And when Keshav Bharati understood what had happened, then he said, okay, I'll give you sannyas. And when Mahaprabhu heard that, he started dancing in ecstasy. This is Brahma-gita. Who's really speaking to who? The gopis are speaking to Uddhava. Uddhava is there to learn from the gopis. Ultimately, Krishna wants to hear from the gopis. Krishna wants that. But he's Bhagavan. Everything is coming from him. When Mahaprabhu heard the words of Keshav Bharati, he began to cry in ecstasy. He started jumping up and down and dancing. Hari, Hari. And he manifested all ecstatic symptoms. This is our line. Guru and disciple in our line is not like externally. The same thing with husband and wife. In the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, in the prayers of the residents of Jambudvip, I think it is, there's an interesting couple of verses which speak about who's really pati, who's really a husband. And wonderful commentaries by our acharyas and Prabhupada. And what is the meaning of pati? Pati means someone who protects. So an ordinary husband can't protect the wife. You can't stop it that I'm going to stand in front of the door. I won't allow the COVID virus to come inside. I'm going to protect you. No husband can protect the wife from everything. No mother can protect the child from everything. Who's really pati? Krishna's really pati. And this is the mood of our sampradaya. We follow externally some varnashram dharma because that's what's the best situation for me. And therefore, in the Pasam of Gajendra Mokshana Leela, Prabhupada writes that Gajendra was having problems because he was in the water. It wasn't his place and he wasn't strong there. And to practice bhakti, we should be in the position where they're the strongest. And so we follow that varnashram system in that sense. But just, I'll read you something from our latest issue of Krishna Katamrita Bindu, which we just sent out yesterday. It's a wonderful letter Prabhupada wrote to Hansaduta Prabhu in 1974. And Prabhupada's explaining his mood about varnashram dharma. Prabhupada says, the varnashram system is for convenience sake in the material world. It has nothing to do with spiritual life. There's a Srila Prabhupada statement. Acceptance of varnashram means a little easy progress to spiritual life. Otherwise, it has no importance to us. For example, all my European and American disciples have no varnashram position, but spiritually, because they follow the rules and regulations and also my instructions, their advancement spiritually is being appreciated by everyone. Always remember that varnashram life is a good program for material life, and it helps one in spiritual life. But spiritual life is not dependent upon it. After all, the system of varnashram has to be realized before accepting spiritual life, and the renounced order of sannyas is the last stage of varnashram. So we don't depend upon that thing. We don't judge in that. And a wonderful example is given in every Bhagavatam volume. Prabhupada had them make a picture when you open the Bhagavatam. And what is that picture? It illustrates our understanding of varnashram dharma. You see a naked little boy, 16 years old, in front of a huge assembly of rishis, the greatest rishis in the world. And some of them are many yugas old. And here's this young boy, we might call him a whippersnapper in Old English. He's like a young punk. And he's 16 years old, doesn't have very good ability to dress himself, can't figure out how to dress properly. Right? And he's speaking the Bhagavatam in front of the king, who's old enough to be his father, maybe his grandfather, right? Kurukshetra Maharaj. And present there also, listening and hearing, is his father, Vyasadeva. And present also in that assembly is Narad Muni, the guru of Vyasadeva. And Shukadeva Goswami is speaking. This is a mood in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And therefore, Thakur Bhaktivinoda, he's given a very wonderful song. I want to sing this song a little and comment on it. So from Kalina Kalpaturu, and then we'll go ahead and finish today. Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakura, Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakura, Sambandha janiya bhajite bhajite abhimana haudura. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakura. That we're praying, Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakur. Oh Vaishnava Thakur, please be merciful to me. If you're merciful to me, then Sambandha Janiya. I'll understand what is my connection with Krishna, what is my role. Sambandha Janiya, bhajite bhajite. And then I'll be able to perform my bhajan. And abhimana haudura. My false ego, my abhiman, my false pride will go away. And what is that false pride? Bhaktivinoda describes in the next verse. Amito Vaishnava Eburi Hoile Amanina Hovorami. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakura. Amito Vaishnava Eburi Hoile. If I develop this buddhi, this mentality, Amita Vaishnava, I'm a Vaishnava, then what will happen? Amani nahobo ami. I won't be able to be amani namanadena. I won't be able to give respect to everyone, which is a necessity for Kirtaniya Siddhahari. If you really want to understand the chanting, you have to give respect to everyone. And what will happen to me then? Pradistasa asi hridoya dushibe hoibo niraya gami. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakura. Pratistasa asi. I'll get this pratista. I'll start thinking, I'm an important person. Don't you know? I live stream twice a week on Facebook. You should give your respects to me. We'll start, and then Hridaya Dushibe. My heart will become polluted. And then what will happen? Hoi boy Niraya Gami. Niraya means to hell. I'll go to hell. If I start thinking, Amito Vaishnava, I'm a great devotee, I'm going to speak to everyone. Rather, we should always be praying. Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakur. Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakur. Tomara Kinkora Apane Janibo Guru Abhimana Chaji. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakura. Tomara Kinkora Apani Janibo. All that I know, all that I want to know, Tomara Kinkora. I'm a servant of the Vaishnavas. I'm not a master of the Vaishnavas. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in one article in Sajjana Toshini, he indicates that Vaishnava marriage is not the same as Vedic marriage. He said in Vaishnava marriage, it's not that the wife serves the husband. Sorry, guys. Or that the husband serves the wife. Sometimes that also happens. He said, how can a Vaishnava accept another Vaishnava as their servant? How can you do that? Rather, they serve each other for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. And they may do that according to their system. If you're from America, then maybe the husband serves the wife. That happens in some places. Or if you're from India, maybe the wife, she dutifully serves the husband, because that's the cultural thing that goes on externally. But the internal thing that goes on, how can we accept service from another Vaishnava? When one of the followers of Shiva Kurukshetra's Babaji came to his Guru Maharaj and said, Gurudev, he'd been gone for a long time. And when he returned, he was there with a beautiful young girl with him. He said, Guru Maharaj, good news. I got married. And she's a devotee. She's a Vaishnavi. And Kurukshetra's Bhava said, very good. Said, if she's a Vaishnavi, I have an instruction for you. Every day you should eat her remnants. And you should offer obeisances to her every morning. She's a Vaishnavi. So how can I think myself a Vaishnava and accept service from another Vaishnava? Rather, Tomara Kinkora, Apane Jaribo. I always think I'm a servant of the Vaishnavas. How can you think that you're better than your children and they should serve you? You should see, they're Vaishnavas. I'm so fortunate to have Vaishnavas as children, and I'm serving them by washing their clothes, by cooking for them, by doing this and that. That's my service. Guru Abhimana Tyaji. I reject the attitude, the Abhiman, that I'm Guru. I'll never accept it. This is the mood of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Tomara. Excuse me. Tomara Uchishta Padajala Renu Sadanishka Patibaji Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakura. I'm praying Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakur. You're my Thakur. What does Thakur mean? Thakur, Bhaktivinoda, who is a Thakur? Thakur means, one meaning of Thakur is you have a lot of property, a lot of land, and you're a big, important person. You have many people working for you. Another meaning of Thakur is that Radha Madhav, they're our Thakur. It's a meaning of God. You're my master, you're my Lord. So, Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakur. Our Thakur is the Vaishnavas. And Tomara Uchista Padajala Renu. For me, what am I going to eat? My food is your Uchista, your remnants. I offer prasadam. We offer prasadam to Radha Madhav, but it's not just Radha Madhav prasadam. Because after you offer to Radha Madhav, then we offer to Srila Prabhupada. We offer to the Panchatattva, then we offer to Srila Prabhupada. And we're taking the remnants of Gurudev. It's not just Radha Madhav prasad, but it's also my Gurudev's prasad. Tomara Uchista Padajala Renu, and I want to take the dust from your feet. I want to take the water that's washed your feet. And in that way, Sada Nishkapati Bhaji. I can really sincerely worship you with no kapatya, no duplicitousness. And Sada, I'm always going to be like that. Not just that I'm humble with you because I want to get Gurudev's favor so he'll give me some position. And then when I get the position, then I don't give a damn about Gurudev. But Sada Niskapati Bhaji. My bhajan is no duplicitousness. So a couple more stanzas of this song and we'll finish. And I'm hoping devotees may have some reflections or comments either online or here and can share it. So think about it. Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakur. Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakur. Nija Shrestha Jani Uchistade Dani Hobi Abhimana Para. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Nija Shrestha Jani. If I start thinking, I'm something important, and we're all doing this, we think, my chudder is better than everybody else's chudder. I have nicer cloth. We're always looking for something, some damn thing that makes me better than everybody else. Nija Shrestha Jani. If we start thinking like that, then Uchi Stadi Dani. Then I'm going to start I'll give my remnants to other people. That's one meaning of Uchi Stadi Dani. Another meaning is that my remnants means I want to give instructions to them. Because I'm so exalted. How dare you criticize me? I'm such an exalted person. And it's very difficult if we're a manager. It's very difficult if you're giving class. And 100 people clap their hands and say, wow, that was a great class. But one person comes and says, that was terrible. And then you think, well, who are you? You know, you're my enemy. 100 people liked it. It must be good because 100 people liked it. And this way, Hobi Abhimana Bar, this very, very big Abhiman, will come to me and I'll become very, very proud. He says, I won't accept that. Rather, Taisishitaba Takiya Sabada Naloibo Pujakara. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Kripa Koro, Vaishnava Thakura. Rather, Taisishataba, Takiya Sarvada. I'm always going to consider myself to be your disciple. My Guru Maharaj said, this is Sishya Abhiman. I'm always a disciple of my Gurudev. If you go to the international school in Mayapur, you'll graduate at some point. And then the teachers, they're no longer your teacher. You go on and you have something else. But Gurudev is not like that. It's not that I take first and second initiation, or I take sannyas, and now I don't need Gurudev. I've graduated. No. I'm always a disciple of my Gurudev. Naloiba pujakar. I won't accept worship from anyone. You may say like that. Once I heard, who was speaking like this? Was it Mahatma Prabhu? Someone was present in Detroit, and they were watching Srila Prabhupada during Guru Puja. And there's like 100 devotees there, and they're jumping up and down and singing Sri Guru Charana Padma. And the devotees are offering artik worship of Prabhupada. And he saw that Prabhupada, he's playing the kartals and he's also singing. He thought, what is this? He's worshiping himself? Huh? And I don't recall if Prabhupada mentioned or he realized it. No, Prabhupada's worshiping his Guru. And Prabhupada's feeling, this is not from me. Naloiba pujakar. I'll never accept any worship from myself. And therefore, my Guru Maharaj used to say that Sri Guru is like a pipe. And the pipe is not the source of the water. If the pipe starts proudly thinking, yes, all the water comes from me, then some problem comes. So the water is coming from the reservoir. And it's coming through the pipe. And the qualification of the pipe is that it's a transparent via medium. If there's some blockage in the blockage comes and the pipe starts thinking, I can do this on my own. I'm an important person here. And then no water comes. The qualification of the pipe is that it just passes on what the previous pipe gives it. And that previous pipe passes on what the previous pipe gave it. And the previous pipe and the previous pipe. And it comes from the reservoir. And that's their qualification. So naloiba pujakar. A disciple, when many people come and they say, wow, that was a great class. A disciple may say, yeah, you're right. It was really a good class and you should give more respect. Because it's not my kata. It doesn't belong to me. Naloiba pujakar. It belongs to my Gurudev. And the disciple may accept it just as Srila Prabhupada accepted. But sadhu sadhadan. Be careful. If we're not clear, if there's some dirt in our pipe, then that water may get blocked and it doesn't come through. And we may get constipated. And if you get severely constipated, it's a big, big problem. Everything should be coming through. We should be proper disciples. The Bhaktivinoda concludes the song. Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakur. Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakur. Amani manada hoile kirtane adikara dibe tumi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama. Kripa Koro Vaishnava Thakura. He says, oh Gurudev, please, Amane Manada, please make me qualified. And what is that qualification? That I become Amani. I have no pride, Manada, that I give respect to everyone else. Hoile Kirtani, then I can really do Kirtan. Adhikara dibe tumi. You please give me this adhikar. Please give me this qualification. Tomara charane nishkapate ami kandiyalu tibo bhumi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Kripa koro Vaishnava Thakur. Kripa koro Vaishnava Thakur. Tomara charane niskapate ami kandiyalu tibo bhumi. If you give me this adhikar, and I become a manina manadena, I don't demand respect, but I give respect for everyone. Kirtaniya sadahari, I can always do kirtan. Then at that time, tomara charani niskapatiyami. Then at that time, without any kapatya, with all sincerity, with all honesty, I can really worship my Gurudev. I can really fall down at his feet with no pretension, not thinking that oh, Gurudev needs to recognize me and give me some special recognition in front of all the devotees so that I can get respect from everyone. We're not coming to Gurudev with any subtle motivation. Then I can really fall down at his lotus feet and become just a little speck of dust. And I can attain that position, my rightful position as a disciple, at the lotus feet of my Gurudev. And then, Kandiya Lutibo Bhumi. Then at that time, Lutibo means to roll. I'll begin to roll around on the bhumi, on the ground. And Kandiya, I'll begin to cry and cry. And what is that crying? My Guru Maharaj said that's Atma Krandana, or the crying of the soul. And it's that crying which is actually the beginning of our spiritual life. And paradoxically, it's also the end of our spiritual life, because that crying is one of the Astasatvikara bhavs. It's one of the symptoms of ecstasy, but it's also the beginning of our spiritual life, because when we become a manina manadena, and we begin to sincerely chant, and we fall down at the feet of Gurudev, then we can really begin to cry. And that crying is, or as my Guru Maharaj would sometimes say, your only qualification is your disqualification. As they say in American and contemporary languages, you have to own it. You own whatever faults that you have, just like a child. Your son, sometimes they do something wrong, and you go to chastise them, and sometimes they, I didn't do it, he did it. Or I did my homework, but a dog ate it. I was coming home from school and a dog grabbed, and they make some excuse. And you're disappointed as a parent, right? Why are you trying to defend yourself? Just own it. Own it. Yeah, you're right. I'm a rascal. I'm a nonsense. I own it. That's Bishad Yoga, the yoga of lamentation. Where Bish, we accept Ad means to accept the Bish, the poison. And it's yoga. It connects us with the Lord. And that, as we often comment, is the foundation of the Bhagavad Gita. And Sanjaya, in the second chapter, begins by saying, Vishidantamidam vakyam uvacha Madhusudana. When Krishna saw, Madhusudan saw the Vishad of Arjuna, and how he's accepting that poison of lamentation, Vishidantamidam vakyam uvacha Madhusudana. Then Krishna began to speak Bhagavad Gita. Then that message came. So in our line, we should understand who is Guru. And that Guru is a messenger of Krishna. And we should never have the abhiman of thinking, I'm Guru, I'm going out and distributing books. You dirty, disgusting, fallen creature. This is your lucky day. Here I am to give you some mercy in the form of Harinam or in the form of a book. But we don't think like that. We think I'm just Gurudev's servant, and this person is much more qualified than me. They can understand this book better than I can. And that's why I want to share it with them. Not that I'm giving some blessing or something like that. And if we have that kind of mood, you'll be amazed. Just as Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, I learned so many things from my disciples. A good book distributor also would be amazed. I went out there to give mercy, but I'm the one getting mercy. And I'm getting mercy from the people that I'm going to give books to. They're such an amazing personality. Krishna can work through those other persons. And this is what's really going on. In this 47th chapter, the 10th canto, in this 29th verse, it looks like Uddhava is speaking to the gopis. I mean, he's speaking some gyan. But by giving a message of gyan, Krishna's doing many things at the same time. He's cheating people who are fools and rascals and think that gyan is so important. Yes, you see, Krishna spoke gyan to the gopis. He's cheating Uddhava. Uddhava is also thinking gyan is so important. This is an important message. But at the same time, just like Mohini Murti giving some nectar behind her back, Krishna's giving amrit to the gopis. And the other person's understanding in another way. And Uddhava's now understanding, oh, this gyan doesn't work with the gopis. And actually, Krishna's message is something much, much deeper. And this gyan, this Varnashram Dharma, is a much, much deeper purpose of it. As Srila Prabhupada said, that this Varnashram system is for convenience sake in the material world. It has nothing to do with spiritual life. But we accept it because it helps us in our spiritual life. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I'm sorry, I've been really talkative this morning. If anybody has any reflections or comments, this is a good time for it. And let's see if anybody on the line said anything. Brenda Sundari, who's a temple president in Denver, Colorado, she's commented, so nice to have the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur to show us how to pray. Otherwise, we're stagnant and stuck. And she says it seems natural that a teacher parent learns from the student child, because in one's life's duration, at certain points, the responsibility of having knowledge is to digest, live, and teach the knowledge. And that means further deepening the knowledge progressively through life. As spiritual beings, we are meant to be always alive in continuous awakening, learning, etc. If we think we're, quote, done, then we're dead. A beautiful comment. Brenda Sundari is good. She's a very, very deep person. Thank you, Brenda Sundari. I like it so much. And I've not marked this. There's certain devotees that I love who quote Shastra and they know so much, but I'm not always inspired because they haven't lived it. They haven't really digested it yet. It's like something which is half-baked. So as teachers, as parents, as leaders, we're meant at a certain point, we become the teacher. When we're a young devotee, we're not teaching yet, but at some point in our life, we become the teacher. But when we become the teacher, that's also learning for us, as Brenda Sundari is pointing out here, because it means that we have to start digesting it now. It means we have to start living it now, not just speaking it theoretically. And she makes another comment here. Regarding managers, everyone is a manager to some extent or another. We all manage our personal energy, our time, our finances, etc. Prabhupada's encouraging Giriraj Swami and exemplifying his management seems to show that Prabhupada was emphasizing that good management comes naturally from understanding the owner of what we are managing, the material energy, Krishna's material energy, which he refers to as divine. So if we take courses for knowing management, etc., and don't couple it with understanding and having affection for the ultimate owner and controller of what we're managing, we will lack the service mood necessary in management. This also seems to relate to Gyan. I know so much can get in the way of devotion, of being fully effective in service, of connecting with others in Sangha. It's such a wonderful thing, The Bhagavatam, how do we do the Bhagavatam? How do we speak? My favorite verse, if you ever heard me give class, almost every verse I quote, this 11.330, Parasparanam katanam pavanam bhagavadyasamito raptimitas tushyanavita atma. We should learn how to associate with devotees by coming together and having back and forth discussions about Krishna. It's not, Krishna Katha does not mean a lecture in a university with someone sitting and writing something, but there has to be back and forth. And then we all benefit so much. Brenda Sundari is so good, isn't it? Such deep comments. And we all benefit. But if we just give a lecture and we pontificate There's a nice word in English, you pontificate. Pontificate means, like it comes from the word pope. Someone who's just giving a lecture, they're pontificating. It means it in a very proud kind of way. They're just going on and presenting themselves as being great. But that pontification is not speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. Then we lose out on the opportunity to learn from that person. And it looks like she just deleted her comment. It was such a good comment. Anyway, Ashwin Prabhu has also commented here. He says, it seems to me that this point of disciples delivering the Guru could be disturbing the faith of some. Yes, it's a very deep thing. And if we start thinking, yeah, Gurudev, you're lucky if you accept me as a disciple, I know you have problems, but here I am to save the day, If you accept me, definitely I'll deliver you. I'm more advanced than you are. And in a subtle way, sometimes we think like that. It's such a demoniac attitude. We should never think like that. And therefore, Thakur Bhaktivinoda is saying, Guru Abhimana Chaji, I'm never a guru. I'm always a servant of my Gurudev. That's my attitude. And my Gurudev, Kurukshetra Babaji, wasn't a big pundit. He had one disciple, Saraswati Thakur, had the name Saraswati. It was given to him because he was so vastly learned. As a young boy, he was teaching the teachers about astrology, astronomy, and things. He was so learned. But he accepted that person who was illiterate, at least in terms of Sanskrit. He knew Bengali, could read Bengali. His favorite books were Prem Bhakti Chandrika and Partan of Narottam Das Thakur. But he wasn't reading the Sanskrit Bhagavatam. But he had this disciple who was so very, very learned. So for a neophyte, they'll run into problems that will be very dangerous for them. The neophyte may start thinking, yes, I know more than Gurudev. And then Hoya Sarbanas, everything is finished. Because Gurudev is not just a person. That sounds a little impersonal, right? He's a person, but Gurudev is also a principle. If you don't believe me, Google, in Prabhupada's books, do a search for the principle of Guru. Prabhupada speaks about it many, many times. There's a principle of Guru. The bank teller in the bank, he's a person. And when you go there, if you just treat him like he's a machine, and you try to punch some buttons on his nose or his eyes, he's not going to appreciate that. And he may call the security and have you thrown out of the bank. Right? He's a person, and you not only you don't treat him like a machine, but you also go, hey, Joe, how's it going? How are your kids? How are you doing today? You speak to him like a person. But he's more than just a person. If he loses the job, if he gets fired, if he quits, you don't lose your account with the bank. He has a particular function that he's doing. So Gurudev is both a person and a principle. And as a principle, in one sense, a guru, the disciple might be more advanced than the guru. There's a story in the Upanishads that once there was one prostitute who was living in a village. There's a lot of stories like this. You may have heard another one or two. And there was a sadhu living there. And the sadhu was always thinking of the prostitute, Hare Krishna. But the prostitute was always thinking of the sadhu. And by thinking of the sadhu, that prostitute became purified. To the point where she finally came to that sadhu and she said, Maharaj, I'm so fallen, I'm so contaminated. Will you please accept me as your disciple and give me initiation? She was qualified, more qualified than the sadhu. The sadhu looked at her, nasty, woman. But she, please, Gurudev, please give me initiation. He said, what is this nasty woman? I can't give her. He said, but she was so sincere, she wouldn't take no for an answer. Finally he said, okay, I'll give you mantra. Here's your mantra, your secret mantra. Dinky, dinky. She said, dinky, dinky? What is dinky, dinky? Dinky means that when you have a mortar and pestle, that's a part of the mortar and pestle. It doesn't mean it. And she thought, oh, dinky must mean a name for Krishna somehow, who is accepting it. And she cried, oh, Gurudev, thank you so much. He just gave her some nonsense word. It was nothing. But she, with so much sincerity, she cried, thank you. And with great sincerity, she started chanting, dinky, 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 and thinking of Krishna and crying. Sometime later, there was a big storm, and a flood came. And the waters rose up above the roof of the sadhu's ashram, he climbed up into a tree. And he's sitting up in there in the tree, and everywhere he looks is water in all directions. And then suddenly, from some distance, he could hear a sound coming closer. Dinky, 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 dinky. And he looked, and he saw there, sitting on a log, floating in the water, completely oblivious of the flood, completely in samadhi, was that former prostitute, just chanting dinky, 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 crying in ecstasy. Who is the greater personality? So we should not have the attitude of being guru. But at the same time, we should all be guru. And it's a contradictory thing. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, in one article, he says that if the Vaishnavas don't accept the position of being guru, how will our disciplic succession continue? He said there's just one problem. As soon as you become guru, you're no longer a Vaishnava. If you have this attitude that I'm a guru, then you're no longer a Vaishnava and you can't give anything. So the answer is that we never think that we're guru. We always think that I'm a servant of my Gurudev. And as I think Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj once commented, he said, my Gurudev can't be here because he's preaching in some other universe. He's preaching in some other place. He's not here. And because he can't be here, I'm operating on his behalf. And that's the only reason I'm doing this. I'm just his representative, just his peon. And my only qualification is to be a pipe and repeat what I've heard from him and to carry that on and not think that I'm the source of the water. So yes, it's a fact that a neophyte devotee, if he starts thinking that I can save my Gurudev, it can be a big problem. And we should avoid that. That's a terrible, terrible poison. From our side, we should avoid it. But on the Guru's side, he may think, yes, I can learn so much from my disciples. And just like the mother thinks I can learn from my children, the teacher thinks I can learn from the students. That's our proper attitude. So if anybody has any other reflections, you can post something on Facebook. Otherwise, anybody here? Is anybody on Zoom? Let's see. No, just Krishna Kun. Krishna Kun, if you have any comments, you can also post them in the chat or on WhatsApp. Anybody here has any reflections you want to share?
Can I ask a question?
Sorry?
Can I ask a question?
Can you ask a question? Yes. Don't mind if I repeat it so everybody's on the here. Go ahead.
It's about lamentation about our qualities.
About lamenting our
Lamenting about our qualities.
Yeah.
You know, how to not to get in a track when we are actually starting to glorify ourselves because of our low position. You know, how to actually judge that our lamentation is on the right path. That actually, you know, it's our humble position, but not.
Right. Very good. So her question is that sometimes we were speaking about beneficial lamentation, but we also see that lamentation can be negative. What's the difference between the two? If we contemplate the topic, we can come to the conclusion that there's three types of lamentation. One is from a materialistic person. I'll give you an example. Sometimes you have a very low-class man who beats his wife, beats his children, and the guy is just really a bad person. But he can't deal with it. He can't even look himself in the mirror. He can't deal with his own bad qualities. And to avoid that, he becomes a drunkard or a drug addict. Because he can't deal with all the mistakes and the bad qualities that he has in life. And that's the deep mode of ignorance. Or someone, they feel sorry for themselves. And they lament, why my husband left me, my wife, she's running away with another man, and they feel sorry for themselves. That kind of lamentation is detrimental. And this is Bishad Yoga. Just like in yoga, we start to do in Hatha Yoga, you start to do some asana, and the good teacher tells you, no, you have to keep your back straight. You're not doing the asana properly, you have to do like this and this. So Arjuna is doing some Bishad, but it's not proper yoga. He's feeling sorry for himself. And therefore the first chapter of the Gita concludes that Arjuna says, that's it, forget it, I'm putting down my weapons, I'm going to commit suicide. Let them come and kill me. That's self-pity. And that self-pity is detrimental. And therefore Krishna in the next chapter begins to chastise him. But still that self-pity, there's some value there because Arjuna has acknowledged that. And he acknowledges that I don't know what to do. And I have this self-pity. I'm like this and it's making me frozen. I can't fight, I can't follow your instructions. But he has one good qualification. That he's taking that to Krishna. He's taking that to Guru. So that comes to the next type of lamentation, which is Atmakrandana, the crying of the soul. And that crying of the soul comes when we come in contact with the sadhu. And we hear Krishna Nija Tattva. We hear this Tattva about Krishna, that I'm Krishna's servant. It's described in Prema Vilas, or excuse me, by Prema Vilas. Anyway, Jagannatha Pandit's Prema Vivarta is described there. That when I hear this tattva from a sadhu, then I begin to cry. And then there's another third type of lamentation, and that's the lamentation of the gopis. The lamentation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is divine. It's a kind of ecstasy, and it's not the same at all. So we should avoid that self-pity. And how do we avoid that self-pity? By understanding who the self really is. That I'm not really this body, and that maybe it's good for me that my wife or my husband left me. Now I can do bhajan as Krishna's arrangement. Maybe I should just accept that and not just run around feeling sorry for myself all the time. But accept, as Prabhupada's godbrother, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj says sometimes, that the environment is always friendly. The situation is friendly. Krishna has something to teach me. Why should I complain about the COVID thing and do this? It's friendly. Krishna has some message for me. There's something beneficial. I just have to find what it is. Something beneficial for my bhajan. Or, of course, maybe Krishna wants someone to go and fight with the government about it. I don't, and be like Arjuna, nimitta matam bhava savi. I'm not like that. Krishna hasn't given me that instruction, but he may give that to somebody else. I respect that. It may be there. It's not that we all have to behave the same. Is that okay? Anything else from anybody? Vakeshri?
Thank you so much for another class. Prabhuji, you started this, the point that Krishna likes Kurukshetra, and he was very subtle in how to present himself, what he desires, dealing with so many devotees. And here, in this particular subject which we discussed today, he establishes Uddhava in this Abhiman. You're the guru for the gopis, you're the guru for Nand Maharaj, you're the guru for Vraja-gopis. You have to go and teach them how to fill in the separation with me. But then, at one point, when it was probably not revealed in his discussion with Nanda and Yashoda, but when it came to discussing the same thing with the gopis, then at one point he could understand that what not Krishna wanted from him, that these things should be given up, this agreement. So, like, what was in the behavior of the gopis that made him understand that not the real thing that Krishna wanted from him?
So I'm just going to repeat what you had to say. Vakeshri Mataji is commenting that we were speaking today, I'm just trying to summarize your comments in question, that we're speaking today how Uddhava was Guru, he was sent by Krishna, and he had this Abhiman, that I'm speaking to Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, trying to solve their problems. that's the Abhiman of Guru. I'm here to solve the problems. And we don't see that Krishna solving the problems. And that when he came before the gopis and began speaking in the gopis, he thought that this is the purpose of Krishna's message, to pacify the gopis, but then he learned, actually, Krishna sent me here to learn. And our acharyas described like that Krishna was feeling lonely in Mathura because the gopis, they had it better than Krishna. In one sense, the gopis, they were both suffering separation from each other, but the gopis had each other. They could speak to each other, they could understand each other. But who did Krishna have? There's nobody there, even Balaram. Balaram's there, but he can't speak to Balaram about his intimate connections with the gopis. He's his older brother. It's uncomfortable for him. So he wanted someone, who can I talk to here? So Uddhava, you're the best here. You should go. And then when you come back, then I'll be able to talk to you. This is one of Krishna's purposes. So Bhikeshwar's question was, how did Uddhava then begin to realize from the gopis? There's no mention that I see here from our acharyas, but we can understand that just by looking at the gopis, just by seeing the expression on the gopis' faces, Uddhava's pride became crushed. When he saw how they were receiving that. So powerful is a great devotee. They can just look at us, and their look is so piercing. And we can understand so many things just by that look. That's my humble understanding of how. Okay, anybody else with any other reflections? Dina Yadri? Speak real loud, it's my hearing sensitive. And I'm going to repeat what you say. So.
Question.
You have a question?
Yeah, if you could tell us a little bit about guru-disciple relationship after the path.
So she's asking if we could say something about the guru-disciple relationship after we depart. Well, it's a test. When my Guru Maharaj left this world, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know who to go to. And there was one sadhu that I had some faith in. He's one of Prabhupada's godbrothers. A very wonderful devotee. His name was Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, very close to Prabhupada. You must have met Puri Maharaj sometimes. And I'd gone to see him several times. My Guru Maharaj knew about that, and I would go back to Guru Maharaj and tell him he said this and this. Because that's what we do. We don't just go to some other sadhu when we have our Guru. If we do somehow, we go back to our Guru. We tell him, Gurudev, I heard this and this. So when Guru Maharaj left, we went to see him. And we said, Maharaj, what do we do? Our Gurudev's gone. And he told us a very powerful thing. He said, don't think that your Gurudev is gone. Rather, you should think that he's hiding in the bushes and watching to see what you're going to do. Because it's a great time of test. It's easy when Gurudev's present, we go to Vyas Puja and we jump up and down and we cook for Gurudev and we go to the class and things. It's very easy to show how great a disciple that we are. And maybe we're just putting on a show. But when Gurudev leaves, it's very difficult. So there's two types of disciples. There's a Bahirmukh Sishya and an Antarmukh Sishya. I've been writing a book about this. I started writing about 15 years ago. I haven't gone very far. We have over 100 pages we wrote about this. The Bahirmukh Sishya is an external disciple. The Antarmukh Sishya is an internal one. The Bahirmukh Sishya, they're anartha yuktavasta. They have anarthas. And therefore, their attitude to Guru is bhogya darshan. They think that Gurudev is here for me to enjoy. Subtly or grossly. Gurudev lives such nice kirtan. He's so affectionate to me. And we get so much happiness from that. We get so much pleasure. But the Antarmukh Sishya, he's anartha muktavasta. His heart is free from anarthas. And his darshan of Gurudev is sevaka darshan. He sees that Gurudev is meant to be served. After the disappearance of Guru, there's three different types of disciples. There's the Guru Giri, the Snehasilita, and the Vishayi. And the Guru Giri is someone who tries to make a business of Guru. And they go around with a t-shirt with Gurudev's picture. And not that it's bad to wear a t-shirt with Guru Maharaj, but they're doing it to advertise that I'm a great disciple. And they want to make sure everybody knows I was initiated by Maharaj, like that. I'm a great person now. That's the Guru Giri. Giri means business. They're doing business like that. The Snehasilita means the Sneha. What is it? They're looking for affection, attention. And both of them think that when Gurudev is gone, that Gurudev, they don't want to say it externally, but they think Gurudev's dead. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls that man morabhav in one article in Sajjana Toshini. He says it's not that your Gurudev's dead, but if you think that he's dead, you're dead. You're brain dead. Because as Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj told us, he's always present. So the Guru Giri, when Gurudev leaves, he's what to do? I'm not really qualified to be Guru, but somebody has to do it. He says like that. He doesn't see that Gurudev is always present and Gurudev will arrange everything. He really wants to be Guru. And so he takes that position. The Snehasilita, after Gurudev leaves, he becomes full of anxiety. Who's going to pay attention to me now? Who's going to give me affection and give me gifts and things like Gurudev did? So I have to look for somebody else. And then he goes running around looking for another Vaishnava. We should accept Siksha Guru. After our Gurudev is gone, we may take instruction from another Guru. But Gurudev should send that person. Not that independently I go running around on the strength of my dull material senses, which are the same thing which binds me to this world, those senses. But with those senses, I'm going to try to find Sadhu Guru. Let me depend on Gurudev. And if I need association, if I need further guidance, and we probably do, Gurudev will send someone. One devotee once came to me after my Guru Maharaj left and said, Madhavananda, what are you doing here in Bhubaneswar? You should come to Vrindavan. The Sadhu Maharaj is there, and you should hear from him. And I said, Prabhuji, that's okay. I respect that sadhu. I said, but can you look me in the eye and tell me that if I go there that my service will continue? I said, you're right. What am I doing here? I have nothing. I have no association, but I have one thing. I have Gurudev's instruction. And I have faith that that Gurudev wants me to have sadhu sangha more than I do. And that if I serve Gurudev and please him, he'll send me sadhu sangha. But if he sees I'm trying to act independently, then he won't, and I may get in trouble. And that came true. I told him, I have faith, Gurudev will send me. And he said, well, yeah, I guess so. And I said, what do you mean you guess so? How can you not have faith in Gurudev? He'll definitely send. And he did for me. And that person he sent for me was different probably than other persons who were sent. That's a personal thing. We should have faith in. But the Snehasilita thinks that Gurudev's dead. The Vishayi is someone who's just looking for sense gratification. And he can't follow the instructions of Gurudev very well. But there's two types of Vishayi, the Anutap and the Niranutap. The Anutap Vishayi Sishya is someone who laments and they feel really bad. What did I do? I'm so bad. I'm so very, very fallen. And that person, he's Apichet Sudaracharo, Bhajate Mamanandibhak. He's actually a sadhu because he's lamenting. He's a durachari sadhu. His behavior is not good, but he's a sadhu because he's not going to give up his bhakti. And he's a sadhu because he's lamenting. He's actually not a bahirmukh sishya, he's actually an antamukh sishya. But he's a kanishta antamukh sishya. But the niranutap vishayi sishya, these are technical terms, the one who doesn't lament, he's a badmas, he's a rascal, nonsense. He's just putting on a show, and secretly he's going and doing all kinds of sense gratification behind everyone's back. And he's not following instructions of Gurudev. He doesn't want to do bhajan. He doesn't have faith in bhajan. He just wants to make some show so he can enjoy things. So these are some thoughts after the disappearance of Gurudev. It's a very big subject. I made a little booklet also called After the Disappearance of Sri Guru. And if you remind me, I can probably give you a PDF of that if you want. And some different things my Guru Maharaj had to say. And I think we had some things from Prabhupada also, maybe Bhaktisiddhanta about that.
About when the disciple also leaves.
What about when the disciple also leaves?
Do they meet?
So will they meet? Yes, we should have strong faith in that. Janme Janme Prabhu say that you're my Lord birth after birth. But how does it work? Gurudev has 1,000 disciples, and so many of them have left their bodies, and some of them take birth maybe in animal bodies. Or maybe some of them take birth in Russia, some of them take birth in America, some of them take birth in another planet. And some of them left their body 20 years ago, and some of them are going to leave their body 20 years in the future from now. Logistically, it's pretty confusing. Does Gurudev have what do you call those files? You keep all the information. A what?
Folio?
No, not a folio, but what's that program in Microsoft? Huh? You have a software program that keeps track of all your.
Database?
You have a database or something, keeps track of all. Does he have some database like that? How does it work? It's so confusing. I asked that question once to my Guru Maharaj. And he's told me something that was very sobering. He said, it's not that you're going to go necessarily back to that same physical guru, the same exact person, but it's the principle. And he quoted some verse, which I've been looking for many years. I don't know where that verse is from, but how the verse described how Gurudev is watching over his disciple, and he'll empower another Vaishnava close by him. And that empowerment means that's Gurudev. How do we understand that different devotees are manifestations of 2 or 3 or 4 different persons? Ramananda Roy is considered to be an incarnation of Arjun, the Pandava. Arjuna Saka was one of the cowherd boys in Braj, not the same as Arjuna, and Vishaka Saki at the same time. It's kind of like how many feet can you put in one shoe? Right? It's very confusing. Devotees always get confused by that. And honestly, I've not seen any commentaries from our acharyas, but I have a theory about that based on Shastra. And my theory is that it's not that the jiva, that there's 3 different jivas in his body, but there's some Shakti that's present there of those different personalities. And therefore we accept that we see that, oh, that's my Gurudev. If I see my Gurudev Shakti in some other person, and it may not be after Gurudev's left, it may be now that I see Gurudev is speaking to me through another Vaishnava. It may be speaking to me through an animal, by their behavior, or through some person, or some even non-animate object. Gurudev's giving some message to me. I should always be looking to hear the voice of Gurudev. So in that sense, Gurudev will be taking care of us. And our Gurudev, because his Shakti will come through maybe some other person. That's my understanding of that. Is that okay? Harishal? All right. Anything from anybody else? It's really late. Wow, it's 10 after 9. Oh my God. Okay, so I think we should stop there. We're going to have, I just want to make a quick announcement that we're going to have a few other classes while we're here. For anybody who wants to take part, I think we're going to shift to Urugai Prabhu's place. Maybe we'll do something on Friday. If possible, I'm going to do something on Thursday. Would it be practical to do something at your place on Thursday evening? At 5:50 in the evening, I'm supposed to give class to some devotees in North Carolina. They have some program. It's about Sadhu Sangha from about 5:50 in the evening to 6:50 for about 1 hour on Thursday. And then on Friday, I'm not sure. Our Gopi Geet sessions just got canceled. But we may give another class at Urugai Prabhu's place if that's convenient for everybody. Okay? All right. Ishani? Harishal?
Yes.
Yeah?
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Svabeda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Vancha Kalpadurubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Nanda Kori Vaishnava Binda ki jai.
Please don't keep